What happened during the last 50 years? What I can say so far is that I'm in the center since 87, so I mean 35 years. So it's difficult to say what Dr. Meyer did before. The evolution, I would say, the reason why I came as an MD, although I did my PhD first at the Centre Immunology, and so I joined as an MD because I felt there was a possibility of translational work that was not possible everywhere else in Marseille, even in different cities. And I felt it was more appropriate because there are two important persons. I would say first is Dominique Marnenki, who was a CEO of the hospital, and Claude Mavas, who was scientific director. And I shared with them the view to have a very strong development of therapy. I was less interested in diagnosis and more in therapy. And it was a pretty good timing because the hybridoma technologies at this period was really efficient. And since I learned the techniques at the CEML, so I brought it here and developed the technique, and we could develop therapies. So I think this was the first period, I would say 87 till 95, something like this, with intense work with all the clinicians who are still here. I was still involved, but more than in the understanding of the patients after 97. 97 when the lab was created within the hospital. The idea was to have an ID of the patients at different stages of disease and to see whether we could envision new therapies, new targets. And on my side, things changed in 2010 for two major reasons. The first one, this was the advent of antibodies immunoregulating immune responses, anti-CTLA-4, then anti-PD-1, followed by CAR T cells, 2011, bispecifics, 2014. So there was a major change because antibody came back and worked intensely. And I was more interested to move from diagnosis, biomarkers, what I was doing at this stage, and novel discovery, to come back now to novel strategies. My view is that what is positive and what are the limitations is what I said this morning. The limitations is that although we have a good network of people, MDs and scientists, closely connected because IPC is small in comparison to other hospitals. The problem is the translation of what we have in our hands or brain to have either a diagnosis kit or a therapy. To take an example, when I launched in 2014 ImCheck Therapeutics, I could launch it because the idea is everything is okay, but we need to the less 5 million euros to have a drug that could be infused in patients plus 5 million for a clinical trial. And this is a limitation. I think we are rather strong on connection with clinicians. We have a very nice discussion. We have some ideas, but the limitation is that it's complicated to achieve, and I don't see a good way at the present time, except working with a private VC, that is to help. The first one is important to indicate, and I say this every time, that were spin-off of IPC. So it's important to advertise and to show that IPC is able to do this. This is important for visibility for the different funds and pharmas because they are interested in what is ongoing. I would say in immunology, initially people were only looking at central immunology, for instance, which is a big... Now, due to what I've done, they change their view. So I think it's one thing. After, what we need, of course, is to have a conjunction between these people who are looking for ideas for diagnosis or therapy and the interest. So it increases the visibility for the people for IO. What I put in IO is also a phase 1, phase 2 unit. The goal, what we are trying to set when the SAB of the biotech are okay, is to promote the know-how of the young MDs or phase 1 unit and to take their ideas and to promote and propose clinical trials. This is something that is useful in the end. And I take other example, what I'm doing with Alderan of Emergence. Maybe it's not a good example for OIO because we are working on solid tumors. But anyway, it's for IPC. I'm sorry, this is what I said in the introduction. It's difficult to tell an immunologist to belong only to hematology. So the way we are developing it is to advertise the traditional work performed by my colleagues and ourselves towards the industry and to permit for this person to develop novel ideas, maybe novel patents, and to translate this into phase 1 after this. I think the most straightforward evidence was during the keynote because the CMO Imchek and the CEO kindly accepted to come, which was good, and they have good conversation with the people in charge of phase 1 and discuss with Norbert Wey as well, thinking of how to develop the therapies and to go to phase 2 trials. I think it's a more appropriate way, and the opportunities for OIO would come this way. It's a more obvious. We have to have this type of interactions and gently discuss, and things would come naturally with Sylvain Garcias, with all the young people, for instance, from OIO, from René de Villiers and others. We don't have to push too much. It's obvious, I would say, and it was so obvious after the discussion. So they changed their cards and they discussed. So it's what I wanted, and for me it's perfect because at the end of the day, is what we are looking for the OIO department, I would say.